Is that what the Last Supper does? Maybe I need to pay more attention.
Yeah, there definitely is.
I feel like they're definitely.
You're Judas. That's what that was.
Oh no, that was supposed to be the Judas. Like she was on the edge.
Oh.
Everyone's the
Okay.
Judas.
We're all Judas.
See, I don't have my. Are we recording?
We're rolling.
All right. Hello. Welcome to the Lumen Land STEAM Lab panel discussion. We're here today with some artists from the wonderful new Lumen Land, and also some artists from Dreamscapes. And we're going to talk about how science and art are buddies like this. And first off, I'm Sky. I'm from Steampunk Academy. And to my left, we have Katya, and Jeremy, and Derek Dyer, and Ted, and Sue, and Felix. So, with Katya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Katya Racine. I'm an artist on Lumen Land and have some pieces in Dreamscapes as well. My primary involvement with Lumen Land was a piece called Rebuild, which is a about 16 by 10 house, 16 feet tall, 99% made from pieces of trees that we lost in that Salt Lake hurricane, and then lit up to kind of represent rebuilding from the chaos of everything that's been going on. And I also helped with the general space, getting it ready for opening.
Cool. And Jeremy, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Jeremy Smith. I have the lunar module art installation that I've had in this space for the last few months here, and it's been fun to see all of the rest of the art come together around this in this space, get developed into something that's really beautiful. So that's been really exciting. It's just been a huge passion of mine to meld science with art, because I have this passion for space, and then I do a lot of stuff in the sciences and engineering, and so it's been really fun to bring something like this that's not just art, but it's also educational and informative, and getting to add aspects of art with our art gallery that we have underneath that people can walk through and see different artists from around the world that have done different space pieces with the space theme, and local artists as well. So it's been an exciting adventure so far.
I should have mentioned that Jeremy was my build partner.
Oh yeah,
Rebuild.
and then also Katya wrangled me in to do the structures for Rebuild, and that was super exciting and a little unnerving sometimes. We got some really good help at the right times to make sure it didn't fall over and get all the bolts in the right place, and now it's a super solid and amazingly beautiful piece.
My name is Derek Dyer, and I'm an artist and the founder and executive director of the Utah Arts Alliance. The piece that I'm contributing to the Lumen Land here is the Illuminator, which is a 24-foot tall disco ball. About 9 years ago, we moved into this compound, and there was an empty lot attached to the property that I asked if we could have that too. Back then, it just had some, it was a place people shot up and drank. And so we had to clean up a bunch of hypodermic needles and beer bottles and things like that. But back then, I had this idea for it to be an art garden. And so not a community garden where we grow vegetables, but a place where we grow art, we show art. And so over the last 9 years, there's been a lot of different iterations or versions of that. But I feel like this is the first time in that 9 years that the true vision of the art garden has been realized. So I'm very excited about Lumen Land and all the artists that have been participating in this project too. So thank you all for doing that.
I'm Ted Crenshaw, and my piece or contribution out there is the Spectral Zephyr. Basically, the idea came from, I was inspired by the work of Ned Kahn. He does a lot of kinetic wind pieces and other pieces throughout the world. And the beauty of the wind, we go to all these events and spaces, and the wind has such a big effect on all of it. And I kind of wanted to capture that in a beautiful way. So it's about 16 feet tall and 20 foot in diameter, 21. It's got 11,423 tiles, and they're all covered in diffraction grating film. So basically, just tried to capture the wind and color. I think it's working out really well.
Yeah. So I'm Suzanne Rea. I am the manager director of Lumen Land, and also the manager of Dreamscapes, and have been with the Utah Arts Alliance for a year now, and have really just been inspired by the community of artists and the organization and the opportunity through Derek and pulling this team together to really execute something really cool that's outdoors right now, and in using what we've created at Dreamscapes and then bringing it outdoors and having a labyrinth in which people can feel that they get deeper and immersed in this art and music and lighting, and it's been a great project. I'm I'm overjoyed. I'm tired, but I'm overjoyed with just like how it's turning out, and it's getting better and better each day. And I'm so grateful for the artists too, because everybody has really invested so much in their own projects, and everybody's like, it's self-sustained because we're creating this community that didn't exist before. And so in taking what used to be a 2-day festival for Illuminate and now expanding it for a month and having it open to the public, where, you know, some of these festivals like Burning Man, you know, people build these large art installations that their family, their friends, their neighbors don't get to see and experience in person. And that's something that we've brought in downtown Salt Lake for everybody to enjoy. So, yeah.
Hey everybody, I am Felix DeSiena. I'm the treasurer for Element 11. Element 11 is Utah's official regional Burning Man. We were very sad this year that we didn't get to have an event because of COVID, of course. That choice was made for us by the government, so we kind of had to roll with it. So this partnership, we provided a little bit of the funding for some of the art at Lumen Land, and we think that was just an absolutely wonderful opportunity to give some money to the artists in our community and to see some of that art, which usually when we fund stuff, it goes out to the middle of the desert somewhere. But this year, we were able to fund art in Salt Lake City, which our family and friends, again, can come see here, and we're just really proud to participate and glad to be here.
Awesome.
Wow, you guys sound so cool. So I just as like a kickoff question, I'd like to ask all of you a question that's considered rather rude, but let's do it in a polite way. So I'm going to ask you how much you spent on art that you've created, but don't tell me in money. Tell me in some other terms, but I'll let you decide. How about you start, Jeremy?
Oh, you're gonna make me go
Yeah.
first. This question, she divulged that this question was based on a conversation we had earlier. So my story with my art piece is back in 1968, the first time that we flew to the moon on Apollo 8. Some of the administrators sent up a Christmas meal because we were there on Christmas Day, going around the moon for the very first time. And so they sent up a Christmas meal, and they sent up these little bottles of brandy, but the mission commander on board wouldn't let anyone drink it, just out of, it was the right decision. So they brought them home, and Jim Lovell, who everyone knows from Apollo 13, was one of the crew members, and he kept his, and he auctioned it off in like 2006, I think. And I spent more on creating my installation than that bottle of brandy went for in auction that went around the moon.
That's probably a lot.
Yeah, it was. Not to mention the time.
Yeah.
So you're saying you could have had
That bottle of brandy.
If I could go back to
That's a huge opportunity
2006,
cost.
I would have liked to be at that auction. I probably would have been interested.
And how about you, Katya?
I don't know that I can think of a great analogy to an item off the top of my head, but I will say for Rebuild, there was a lot of cost, I guess you would say, in the physicality of the actual build process. You know, this was really a piece for me that was a true labor of love. And it involved driving around the city with a U-Haul and digging through piles of debris and recruiting Jeremy to come with me because I was trying to get the biggest pieces that I could, and I couldn't pick them up by myself. And every day going home just bleeding, just, you know, you don't realize
Gave
how
our first
spiky.
aid kit a workout.
I gave the first aid kit a workout,
Yes, you
like
totally did.
often. I can't tell you how many times Jeremy was like, put your gloves back on. You don't realize how spiky sticks are until you're just hauling them from the street to your trailer, from the trailer to the garden, from the garden to the other corner. So I'd say that it never felt like a cost because it was something that was so important for me on a personal level, and to try to, I felt lucky to have the opportunity with Lumen Land and with the UAA and with E11 to provide something that was very intentionally for this time in our lives, for everyone, for Salt Lake especially. I think it's been such a strange time with the pandemic, with the civil unrest that's happening, on top of that having earthquakes and inland hurricanes, and just it being such a year where it's so easy to feel like everything has been torn apart. To take that and turn it into something beautiful and light it up and make it something to look forward to say, how do we take the chaos and make something beautiful? And art is such a brilliant way to do that. I think it is something that, and I don't always do it. Sometimes I make things because I think they'll be cool and they'll be pretty. But yeah, so the cost was blood.
Yes, exactly.
What about you, Derek?
So the Illuminator is the second large disco ball that we built, and the first one was in 2003. It was in the Guinness Book of World Records, 2003. This one was built about 7 or 8 years ago. It was a solution to our bad air quality. So for New Year's Eve, there's normally a big fireworks show. So in working with the city and the Downtown Alliance, we were trying to figure out a alternative to the pollution and all of the other negative aspects of having fireworks in the middle of the city, where a lot of veterans live and a lot of animals live. And so my idea to them was like, let's build a new disco ball. Let's build it twice as big. It will be amazing. And everyone liked that idea. As I was running numbers, it should have cost about as much as a starter home in Salt Lake City would cost. So for those of you who don't live in Salt Lake City, that's about $300,000 plus. But our budget was about a fourth of that, and or a fifth of it. About $60,000 was our budget. So, basically, it was definitely a community project. We had over 50 volunteers helping us tape the mirrors and do all of that. We did pay several welders and, of course, a lot of the materials. Some of the materials were donated, but we were able to make this happen at a fourth of the cost, basically just having everyone come together and do that. But yeah, basically it's worth about a Ferrari or a starter home in Salt Lake City. And the other thing, it cost me a little bit of my brain and my body, because by the time we got the okay to do it, we had about a month to pull it off. And so it was a lot of work, and building something that's primarily metal on December 31st and you know, the 30th and the 31st, when it's like below freezing and you're working 12-hour days, building something, hoping that it works right because you have 40,000 people coming to stare at this thing as their New Year's Eve focal point, was pretty stressful. And so I think I broke my brain a little bit on that project. But yeah, so that's the story of the disco ball call.
What you did?
It's a hard question, and I've heard a lot of people in earlier discussions kind of echo what I've thought. You know, what is the real cost? Do I, if I worked overtime for all the hours I put into this, do we count that against it? You know, how much money, how much time, storage, paying? And the best thing I could relate it to is it costs about as much as a slightly destructive vice. So like not a normal smoker, but like a chain smoker. Goes to the hospital a couple times, or you know, it takes a little toll on your family, a little toll on your job, you know, a big toll on your pocket. And if you add it up over the years of building, that's about the cost.
Wow. Can you sue Pfizer for it?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Can you sue Pfizer?
I can't hear. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
It's a bad joke. I'm gonna leave it.
All right, me. So I would say like Lumen Land as a whole and creating this whole experience, and you know, I was thinking earlier, you know, the freshman 15, like maybe 5 pounds, because our majority of our build was during October, and we had copious amounts of Halloween candy around. And what I came back to was that, you know, as a lover of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and, you know, creating worlds that people can step into and experience and, like, you know, reimagine art in different ways. And so I would say overall, from inception, from when we got kind of control and a handle on, you know, the junkyard that was just organizing and cleaning stuff, I'd say probably about 3 golden tickets worth of chocolate bars.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Love it.
Nice.
maybe a scrumdiddlyumptious in there too.
Yeah.
I think my answer would be similar to Ted's, similar to Katya's. You can certainly measure this type of thing that we do in that it's all your evenings, all your weekends, all your paid time off, all your expendable money. But also you measure it in just the hours of your life, the years of your life. When I look back at all these projects, I see a lot of like split knuckles and broken tools and lost stuff and stuff that wanders off while you're working
Oh,
on
yeah.
something. And that's good. That's you upcycling your life into art. It's an act of creation. It's like giving birth. And I look back at some of the worst times, some of the worst experiences, you know, getting really hurt or losing something really expensive. And I see those as the most beautiful memories, the things that I laugh about when I'm having a beer at night. And so I think of some of the biggest expenses as being the most valuable experiences. So that's the way I think about it.
Wow, that's awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to Derek now as the
Okay.
moderator of this wonderful conversation.
Yeah, so we have a couple questions we want to run past the panel here. So how has STEM, which of course means science, technology, engineering, and math, inspired or influenced your art practice that makes it STEAM? So we love to add that A to the STEM, and politicians out there, you should be funding STEAM. From STEM to STEAM is our motto when it comes to funding education. And of course, this is the STEAM Lab, sponsored by the Steampunk Academy. So this is our STEAM question. So how has science, technology, engineering, and math inspired or influenced your art?
Sure. So my pretty much entire artistic career has been influenced by STEAM before I even knew that STEAM was a term. My first job my first internship that I forced my way into was working as a teaching artist through a theater company at the Kavli Astrophysics Institute at MIT. Undergraduate, I was studying theater, and I was in an astronomy class dying over pictures from Hubble, and that day said, how in the world do I go from undergraduate in the arts into an astrophysics degree? Because that's what I want to do. And just synchronistically the same day found out that there was a theater company in Cambridge called the Underground Railway Theater that partnered with the Kavli Astrophysics Institute to teach teenagers about astronomy through playwriting. So that was my first job, was being a teaching artist with them. And then when I moved to Utah, and people would ask me what I did, I didn't know how to describe it because I didn't know that STEAM was going to become an acronym that we used. So I said interdisciplinary education. And then actually ended up working here in town for the Leonardo Museum for a long time, traveling around teaching their traveling physics program, which was this really, I thought, exciting way of teaching middle school physics in waves, transfers of energy, and forces in motion through really beautiful visualizations. And even just getting creative and hands-on, building Rube Goldberg machines, talking about the physics of sound. So that was something that was always really passionate. I was always really passionate about. And I would say that sometimes I think about it directly when I'm building my art, but I think that it subconsciously influences what I do, playing with geometry and shapes and being really interested in those things. In a lot of like, you know, maybe the obvious things like fractals and the beauty of math. But I find mathematical engineering things to be inherently very beautiful. I'm the kind of person that, bleeding heart liberal environmentalist, but I will drive by a factory and be just taken aback by how beautiful it is aesthetically. If you take away what it does and what it means, that humans built that, and the lines and the density I find so beautiful. So I think I play with a lot of that in my art, kind of negative space and shape influenced from an engineering math standpoint. And then I just nerd out on science whenever I can. I don't know if that's an answer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And,
Quite amazing.
Jeremy.
So I am an engineer, and so I had a career as an engineer working for different corporations, for the last 25 years. But about 10 years ago is when I first discovered Burning Man, and that I actually do have a really creative side and really wanted to explore that, and got the opportunity right off the bat to be part of some really amazing art projects going out there. And a friend of mine who was also an engineer was building an art car and asked me to do the flame effects for it. And so just right off the bat, I'm learning flame effects, and it was a very kind of scientific process of learning what the right way to do this was and what the safe way to do this was. And so, just from those first two projects that I did, those art cars, I learned. So, like what I often tell people is I learned as much from getting into the Burning Man scene and doing art as I did going through college. It's just constantly, learning new things, learning new technologies. This is like 2011 for the Scorpion art car. Arduinos were a brand new thing that had just come out of Italy. And we're just like, oh, let's see if we can use these to, control the flame effects. And so right away I'm, learning this Arduino and learning coding, and it was just changed my world for like what was possible for making art. And I've been, dabbling and trying to use that as much as possible for, having fun interactive control systems where you can have, people doing different things, causing the art to interact with it. And it's just been an adventure ever since. And just more recently, I've stepped away from flame effects to jump into my passion of our journey to the moon, which is an amazing story of 400,000 engineers in the 50s and 60s coming together to achieve this goal that changed humanity forever. So
Yeah.
it's been something. It's been exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah, the Arduinos and mini computers like Raspberry Pi has really changed the game for a lot of technology.
Oh, yeah.
Work and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
I love the life hacking, like those videos of the people that hook up like makey-makeys to pieces of pizza and then close the circuits by dipping them in the sauces to make music. And
exactly.
I think that's such a dream and such a fun thing that Burning Man is bringing, is this idea of like using computers, using technology to have this thing that you touch and you interact with, and it does these cool sound
Right.
effects, and it changes the lights, and it's becoming so accessible
Yeah.
at intro levels with Raspberry Pis and makey-makeys.
And it's just expanding the possibilities for art so much that there's a limitless amount of ways that you can use this new technology to get people excited or interested and amazed. So that's really fun.
Yeah, I like it when people integrate humor or like fun into their art projects too. So like the pizza
Yeah.
analogy is great.
Definitely.
Ted.
Yeah, I worked on thin film metrology tools in the semiconductor industry for the last 7 years, and was introduced to Burning Man in 2015. I've always kind of built stuff and played, but that really ignited, the desire to build art, and working in science and with basically with light and light spectrums, I calibrate and align light spectrums all day. So yeah, just sitting there and playing with rainbows all day kind of definitely contributed to my art, and vice versa. The art really pushed and inspired me in my career, because it wasn't just figure out this procedure. It was, whoa, I want to understand this. So you like dig in and you understand it. It definitely advanced my knowledge on both sides. So it makes the science and the art together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sue.
Well, I would, we all have kind of that story of like, we wanted to be an artist. As a kid, I always wanted to be an artist, and I didn't, ended up taking all my elective courses and drawing courses and certain things, but, parents and life, and ended up working for engineers and architects. One of my first jobs was in San Diego, and I worked for landscape architects. And I always loved the science behind like planning design, and what types of like the actual like science behind plant life. And that actually evolved into working for architects and engineers in various fashions of doing project management, marketing, business development. And so after working in Manhattan for years and being a part of that world and supporting these mad scientists who, build giant skyscrapers, and civil engineers that, build bridges that support just tremendous amounts of weight and everything, and moved out to Salt Lake City on kind of a whim to pursue creative interests. And this has been kind of a melding of everything that my experience and what I wanted to do. And so the science behind, especially like Lumen Land, like creating kind of a labyrinth, like looking at like the square footage of like the space, like interacting with the artists, like talking to Jeremy and Katya, and as like the plans kind of developed and just like up in our game. And so it's been really cool, and it's been a great melding of all of the things. Supporting it, and an artist as well.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Felix.
Quick aside, when we started here, we did our bios, but they were kind of our bona fides to sit at this table, not really who we are outside the artistic scene. By show of hands, engineer, astronomer. Kind of like, there's a lot of science here at this table, which I think is really wonderful. When they were putting together this committee, I don't think that's what they were searching for specifically, but I think it's really cool the confluence of that you find those types of people in these types of communities. So there's a lot of people building art, but there's also a lot of substantial science, a lot of industrial science. I'd like to give a quick shout out to NIMBY out in Oakland, California. It's a really cool space. You guys are familiar with that. They make a lot of really cool art cars, the kind of mechanical, mechatronic stuff. You see giant crabs walking around at Burning Man. And I think that stuff's just absolutely beautiful. And I think that's a really cool way that you can bring science and technology together, because just because you go into a field of science doesn't mean you don't have an artistic heart. It just has a little bit more of a industrial twist to it. And I think that stuff's just absolutely magnificent, and I love to see people who can bring that all together. I think it's just beautiful.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think any artist would at some point realize that especially science and math play a large part in, even if you're an oil painter, a lot of times, even at the state capitol, they have sort of these things grouped together in their statues, arts and sciences. So arts and sciences are normally kind of put in this category. So I think that kind of speaks a lot to what we're talking about. Great. The next question is, do you think that art is important to our community to fund as other STEAM disciplines, especially during a pandemic? Why or why not? And of course, we have a lot of this CARES Act money that's coming around. A little bit has helped us do this, and of course has helped us with ILLUMINATE especially overall. And so let's start again with you and talk about why art is important to the community, especially with, I kind of mentioned it before, but STEM gets a lot of funding and the arts kind of are separated from that, and
Yeah.
you know, we're trying to integrate that more. So
Yeah, I fully think that art deserves as much funding as, or at least almost as much as many of the STEM disciplines do. It breaks my heart to see things like art classes being cut in schools and artists being undervalued. I think, not to be very poetic with my language, but in a lot of senses, art is what makes us human. We are the storytelling animals, and it is kind of a bit of our niche. We don't have many other species on the planet that make art. I think it also is so important right now at this point in globalization, where we're on the internet all the time, constantly confronted with everything that's going on in our humanity, that art really helps us process things. Science, technology, engineering, and math can, and they definitely help us understand the world. They help us understand how to walk through the world, how to interact with it, how to build, how to progress. But I think that art helps us understand what that all means for us internally as we continue to move on, to progress as a species. And I think that humans inherently strive to create things. We started singing and making music at the same time we started talking. Think about how much we value and love when we find an old pictograph or something on a wall. It's so just directly to our core beautiful to us that our ancestors have been painting forever. So I think I don't want to sound too flowery, but I think that, art keeps us human. And I think that it is a shame that it is not valued at the same level as science and engineering, financially at least. I think more often a beautiful piece of art's gonna make you process something and feel something. Sometimes math and tech do, but they're not arrows straight to your heart. So, believe in humanity.
excellent. Jeremy.
It's funding for art in the community is essential for keeping the community engaged and flowing. I think we've got Derek and Sue have done an amazing job here to get this Lumen Land project together, giving some type of art space outside during this pandemic that people can come and experience. The world is shutting down, and it's shutting down more and more every day this fall, and it's amazing to be able to have this experience to tell people, hey, you don't have to be locked up in all the time. We've got this opportunity where we've created a safe space for you to come see some amazing art that people put a lot of time and energy into, where, without this, there's really nothing else to do, and people are suffering from that. So I think it's amazing that this was able to come together, and we were able to get funding and get it all put together. So I'm glad. Thank you guys.
Yes. Yeah, and I have to say the state of Utah, for all of our quirkiness, has been very supportive of the arts. There's a lot of other state legislature and governments that have not put any CARES Act money into funding the arts, and we're very fortunate here in Utah. One of the things we're very fortunate about is our legislature is very supportive of the arts, as well as the city and the county, and so that's very important. But the arts, so I do a lot of lobbying work too, and I talk to our representatives a lot about the arts. And so the arts contributes over $750 billion to our economy, more than transportation or agriculture. But the return on that back to the arts community is very minimal compared to the sort of subsidies that the transportation sector or the architectural sector, or especially the oil and gas sector gets. And so we always like to remind people that not only does it help us process what's going on, help us experience something deeper, but it also is good for our economy, and it's good for our health, you know, to support the arts. And so that's very important. And yeah, so let's hear from Ted.
Yeah, I think it's really critical. You know, you can fund science and technology and push it as much as you want, but without art, I think you lose a lot of your passion. And art, to me, injects passion into all those. You know, a passionate or motivated R&D person is going to produce far more and be more conductive as a team if there's art or fun and passion involved. And that's the bottom line for me, is without it, you don't get that same passion.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Sue?
Yeah, I would have to say, kind of from what Katya was saying, is that, you know, the creative process, like the getting out and doing something, and, you know, just working through that, like it's what helps mental illness. Like it helps, like all of us have certain levels of, you know, like little ADHD or mania or whatever, you know, as artists, as a community, as, you know, human beings. And that when you can kind of come together and produce an end result, and whether you're failing or succeeding, and just doing it is what really, you know, brings community together, and it gets people interested and excited. And one of the things, like through this process, through dreamscapes and Lumen Land, is, you know, working with the Utah Arts Alliance and figuring out the funding and how, you know, what we can do to keep supporting these artists. And one of the big things that we do is, you know, creating community partnerships with like Freeform and Salt Palace, and how we can really, you know, it sounds cliche, but it's true, save the world through art, and like just, you know. And so through creating those relationships, and one of the things now that we have this going is providing those resources to artists. Like, you know, I just had I was with a friend last night who I was using Post-its. We played a game of Boggle, and her just resources have been cut, like, severely. And we, through a community partner, have boxes of these weird Post-its that are double-sided. And I was like, I'll bring you a box. And she just lit up, you know? And so that's what we want to just like continue to do, and that does require funding to support, you know, the arts and the organization to really get to a point where we can do that more frequently. You know, we have, you know, Freeform, where we can give plexi shields to schools, and, you know, looking at those resources and creating those relationships is really important, but it does require funding to be sustained, and the staff and the people that are passionate behind it need to eat and maybe get a massage every now and then, who knows, but, you know, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And speaking of funding, so we're very excited that Element 11 has been able to partner with us on this. A lot of people may not know, but Element 11 was originally kind of under the Utah Arts Alliance. So we originally, you know, went to the state, established Element 11 as a DBA of the organization, and kind of grew it to the point where we were able to create a separate nonprofit for Element 11. So this has been really fun to see that kind of come full circle, and for us to be able to partner together. So it's kind of like letting your kid go off into the world, and then they come back and you know, share the wealth, and you know, be able to collaborate and things like that. We definitely could have not have done a Lumen Land without Element 11. So we appreciate Element 11's support, and
Thank you.
so,
Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege.
Yeah,
So
wonderful.
I'm sitting down here. I don't know there's going to be potentially two versions of what we're doing right here. There's going to be maybe just an audio version. We're also recording a video here. I'm not sure what format this might turn into, but for those of you who can't see, I'm sitting at the end of the table. So whenever we start each question, I just have my own little thing I want to say, but by the time it gets to me at the end, I have so many thoughts about what everyone has said. So I'll do my best not to trail off, but I have so many thoughts. Everyone has such wonderful things to say. It's really thought-provoking. I'm really enjoying hearing everyone's answers. I really do think that the way the world is right now, I perceive that in the media and politics, there really is a focus on keeping the economy going. And the most direct way to address that is by keeping industry going. As you said, though, art is a giant piece of economically who we are. But I do think that you cannot remove art from our experience. That's something that Katya brought up earlier, that it really is part of what humans are, to create art and to perceive art. And during a year like this, I think people can lose their ability for whatever reason, whether it's enthusiasm or resources, to create art. And that really does mean a little light in them kind of goes out. And I think that's really unfortunate. We need to keep that alive to keep ourselves strong and enthusiastic. And I think there's a beautiful mixed metaphor there of Illuminate and Lumen Land, bringing that light back into our life experience. Because I know a lot of people just in my little corner of the community, it's one piece of a larger puzzle. But people that are really disappointed they didn't get to do their favorite hobbies this year, they didn't get to make big art like they're accustomed to. There's a lot of people, Ted's a really great example, people who consistently make large, beautiful art each year. And there's a lot of people in the community who couldn't do that for various reasons, and that's a big piece of who they are that's gone. And I think that these days especially, we need to make exceptional efforts, whether that's as communities, as nonprofits, and I think the state as a whole needs to also belly up and participate in that, help bear some of that burden, to help our community make art, to help our artists to express who they are, and to help people to see the art that's created. And I think that really does keep a light alive in all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the metaphor is very apropos, especially this year. With Illuminate, we kind of say that we're shining, letting people experience our city in a new light, and shining a light on our culture and our creative community and things like that. So, and it's unfortunate that some people are having sort of an artistic block right now because of all of the terrible and crazy stuff that's been going on, especially this year. But I hope that they're kind of storing up inspiration, because pain and suffering can be very inspiring as well. And so some of the greatest art of all time has come out of famine and death and plague, and that's just how part of the human experience. And so I think that we'll have some really good art coming out in the next couple of years, even if people are not creating it necessarily right now. I hope, but hopefully the funding to help create that art will keep coming. So that's a good point. All right, I have one more question, and this is about adapting art experiences to the pandemic. And so I'll just start with this one. I think one great thing about the Utah Arts Alliance is that we were created by and for artists. And so we're not business people that decided to start an arts organization, and we don't think of it that way for the most part. And so one of the things that I think has been great about Utah Arts Alliance, we've really been able to, I hate using this word because it's way overused, but we've been able to pivot this year and still do Urban Arts Festival in a COVID-safe way. We've still been able to do most of our programming just by, taking sort of that third or fourth option. Not everything in the world is two options. There's many times a variety of options, even though a lot of times we like to say yes or no or black or white. But there's actually, hundreds of options out there if people are just able to take a step back and say, this doesn't have to be yes or no. It can be option 34, which it looks a little different, a little different like that. So Lumen Land is a great example of that because of the pandemic. An outdoor, timed, spaced out, mask required,
Yep.
hand sanitizer everywhere, and it's probably the safest place to be, really. According to what we're hearing lately, you're probably safer at Lumen Land than you are at home. And so, so that's the final question is adapting art experiences to the pandemic.
Sure. Just kind of to comment on what I've seen or think about it.
Yeah.
I've seen, I think it took a minute, and I think everyone during the summer just sort of was in shock. I mean, I'm a pre-COVID, a full-time touring musician, and that industry is gone right now. It is gone. So I think a lot, both in the music scene, especially in music, but definitely in visual art as well, I think a lot of us just kind of took like March through July to just pause and go, I have no idea what to do right now. But I've seen some really incredible innovation coming out of Salt Lake. Just to touch on the music side of it, for example, Sartain and Saunders have been doing some pretty cool things. They did a very small ticketed socially distanced bike concerts during the summer where they would have 5 different bands downtown outside, and then they put a lot of front-loaded effort into sending somebody to put tape X's on the parking lot that we were playing in, and then you had to stay with your ticketed group, and when you got there they would take you to your X, and everyone was socially distanced, and we had people coming up to us so emotional, so happy, even if it was a weird format, even if it wasn't a concert the way you want it, just so happy to be able to see live music. And then they did a couple backyard shows where it was seated, masked, distanced, and again, it was so lovely to see. I think going into winter, unfortunately, the music industry is probably going to pretty much shut down. It is actually heartbreaking to think of how many people are going to lose jobs, venues, careers that they've spent years building. I think it's easy to think of, I guess I'll just continue to talk about music. It's really easy to think of the musicians. It's maybe not as immediate to think of the sound guys and the stage hands and the lighting engineers and the venue owners and the bars that run out of those venues. To talk to your point earlier, Derek, it is a huge industry financially. And now there's, hundreds of thousands of people with no job that isn't coming back because it's winter and what do you do? So I think that hopefully we'll continue to see innovation. I think maybe the music industry is in pause number 2 of how do we keep going now in the winter? And then to talk to the visual arts industry, I think what you guys have done here is brilliant. Lumen Land is so lovely, and it is really nice, and it is safer than a lot of things you could do otherwise. I can also say that I've been working with Finch Lane, and they have moved from an open gallery style to taking reservations for the gallery, which I think is really interesting now because it is influencing what they want to put in the gallery. They've noticed now that people coming with reservations are lingering longer because people have set aside this time to come. They're staying in the space longer. They're really, it's only them and their family group that they've come with. So I'm actually working on a piece I'm installing next week with Jake Buncher, Mr. Popper, another artist that works with Dreamscapes, a piece called Sanctuary that is specifically Finch Lane, which is kind of a fine arts gallery, making an installation specifically to respond to the fact that people have been lingering in the space. So let's give them a space to linger. Let's give them art that's beautiful, that is safe, that allows them to sit, process the year. So sorry, I've been talking for a minute, but I think that I think there's a lot of innovation happening. I think art is responding, and I think that people are innovating, and I think that that's kind of one of the things artists do best. We really are ready to roll with the punches. Something is always going to go wrong on your install, and you got to just be ready to go. Okay,
Yep.
going this way now. So yes, apologies for the long answer.
No, that's great. That was great. Yep, I agree. Jeremy.
I'm a huge advocate and proponent of how obstacles can cause beneficial change and innovation. And this pandemic, as hard as it's been for everyone, is causing every industry, to rethink how how they handle themselves and how it's run. And it's tough and it's been hard, but going forward, when we get through this, I think it's we're going to come out the other end of this and find a lot of benefits that came from it. And from corporate day-to-day work where people will be able to telecommute more and save money and use less fossil fuels, to artists where I don't think what we have here, Lumen Land, probably may not be here without the pandemic, and the need to have some type of outdoor space and giving us all the drive to get this art garden that's been here for so many years and finally get it cleaned up and looking pretty amazing. So the pandemic is still a long ways to go, and it's still going to cause a lot of problems, and I think things are definitely going to still be getting quite a bit harder before we get to the other end of this. But humans are versatile and responsive creatures, and they find a way to get through things and innovate and persist. So
Great, well said.
Yeah, ditto. Basically, big props to you guys for pushing through and saying, well, we're going to find a way to make this happen. Because I know it can't be profitable for anyone that's shifting right now. It's something a process you have to go through, and it's a choice you have to make, because there is no such thing as an essential worker. Like, everyone is essential, basically, is what I've come down to. And for me, the biggest pivot has been personal responsibility. You can do things, but when you're at game night with your friends, keep your distance, keep your mask, and that personal responsibility, if it's transferred through everyone, gets us all back, and helps us all adapt and makes more things possible. So anything you can do personally to maintain responsibility helps everyone. The music industry, even like the bars and restaurants. There's so many industries that are having a hard time right now, and I think the biggest pivot that needs to happen is just consistent personal responsibility.
Good. Sue.
So I would say, the beauty of working with artists is we are creative problem solvers, and that is when you have to pivot. One, I feel just as an organization and as a team, opening up that dialogue more, of what do we do? How do we react to this, and okay, we're going to remove a ball pit this week. And so we really haven't stopped having those conversations. How do we mitigate contact points? How do we still provide art and keep people safe? And, with Dreamscapes reopening and being one of the first, I feel that way as the manager, but, when we reopened, handling the public and really just taking in, I know it's a bummer that you can't take your face mask down and take a picture right now, but this is something that we have personal responsibility as an organization, providing art to create that system of, everybody caring about everybody around them. And so I would just say, we're problem solvers, man. And that's what we've done with Lumen Land. And that's what's been really, really cool, in building a labyrinth outside that people can slow down, take things in. How is this built? How is this created? And start sparking that thought process of how do we fix it? How could I do something like it? And we have grants available on our website. We want people to come bring their ideas. Let's get more artists involved right now more than ever. And it's been fun. It's been a great learning process, and we're just gonna keep problem solving and providing art. Yeah.
Excellent. Well said. Felix.
I think there's a couple important things that I've tried to keep in mind. I think the first is being pragmatic in understanding what your own needs are. That's something that's been on my mind recently for unrelated reasons, but I think that it also has value here to understand who you yourself are and what your needs are, whether you are an artist that needs to make art or whether you're an organization that needs to give to the community and give them a platform. Understanding what you need, I think, is an important first step, but I also appreciate the second step that I feel is there's a big part of, for me, the part of being an artist, you know, to my own limited role. I understand I'm amongst some really heavy hitters here, but in my own small way, I think that my art is being kind of a scrounger. I like coming here to the Arts Alliance and seeing what puzzle pieces we have here, kind of helping a little bit to get set up
It's
for
a
Lumen.
puzzle.
It absolutely
It's
is,
totally
but there's a
puzzle.
lot of pieces too that you just don't know necessarily when you start what your puzzle is that you're building. For instance, working on the Barbara Ann out here, that's the boat. There's a nice little picture of it right there on the whiteboard. We came in and we had a lot of needs that we didn't have funding for, but in looking around the Arts Alliance, we saw that there were resources here. And so knowing what our need was and then seeing what you had available helped us to kind of synthesize a new type of solution. Something that kind of comes to mind, this is kind of a non sequitur, but I saw a weird comedy thing on YouTube a while back. I think it was like a Z Frank video where he was describing the difference between different types of eyeballs, human eyes versus, I think, crustacean eyes. He was talking about a shrimp, I think, and he was saying shrimp can see so many more spectrums of light than humans can see. And at one point he says, to understand this, try to imagine a color you can't even imagine. Now do that 7,000 more times. That's what shrimp can see.
Wow.
And I see a lot of that in our community where there's people trying to imagine new types of problem solving, new ways to address their problems, new creative ways to overcome issues that drop into your lap, and trying to expand your way of thinking. And I think that's a beautiful way to approach this. Know who you are, know what you need, and then imagine a color you can't even imagine, and then get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things I think everyone here, but also the Utah Arts Alliance has always done, mostly because it came from a place of we never had a lot of money to begin with, so we had to work with what we had. And so sometimes money is the only answer for a problem, but I would say 90% of the time that's not the case. Money is the easy answer, because if you can just buy whatever you need, then you have it. But a lot of times, using what's available to you, you may get a better product at the end that someone would never have imagined. And Dreamscapes is a great example of that. We've bought very little new raw material. It's mostly built out of repurposed and upcycled materials. And so I think that's a good example that we're setting for the rest of the world to say there's already a lot of things there's already a lot of materials, there's already a lot of things. We're also trying to get a lot of other nonprofits to start sharing their resources so that everyone doesn't have to buy truss, and everyone doesn't have to buy lights, and everyone doesn't have to buy everything that they may only use for one part of the year. But let's start sharing our resources together, and that way we can spend the little bit of money that we do have maybe paying artists or getting those things that we can't find or upcycle. So
Absolutely. And if I can add to that, it's not just the physical, it's not just about stuff, it's also about finding ways to put together these pieces of social media where we can't come together like we used to, maybe finding ways to create new types of venue, create new ways to schedule galleries, or finding ways to get to your public through YouTube or Zoom or whatever resources you need, but finding ways to not just build stuff, but also come together as a community. I think that's really important, very valuable skill to have as well, especially right now.
awesome, love it. All right, our last thing is we want to give everyone an opportunity to plug whatever it is that you're excited about and working on. Of course, we've been plugging Lumen Land the whole time, and you can continue to plug away at that, but we wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about what you're excited about, what you're working on next, and if you have anything else you want to share.
Sure. I think I did in my last answer plug my next thing. Yeah, so my next piece is called Sanctuary. It's a 3-room non-denominational sanctuary at Finch Lane. It's inspired by our progression through a day. So the first space you walk into is the Moon Sanctuary, then the Star Sanctuary, and then the Earth and Sun Sanctuary. And it'll be 3 unique takes on those things, and the hope is that it is beautiful and lives up to Finch Lane's expectations of art, but also encourages people to sit, to stay, to reflect, to experience something beautiful, but also take a moment in the space to kind of find respite from 2020 right now. So that, and then my band is dropping a new album soon. So Pixie and the Party Grass Boys, in the next few months, we'll have our next full-length album called Snake Creek coming out. So those are my 2 big things coming up.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm excited for the album too. Jeremy.
Right now, after we get through this month and whenever this finishes, my next big project is coming off of COVID sabbatical that I've been on since June. So that's going to be my big focus to, restabilize my life, to look forward to, I'm looking forward to getting back to doing some more flame effects sometime next year if things start to go somewhat-ish back to normal, so we'll see what happens. So that's really what I've got going on now, but I'll just throw a quick plug out to get out to Lumen Land and come see some amazing art, and if you're not careful, you can actually learn something, so it'll be fun.
Careful, kids. I think just real quick, my stuff, a lot of my art now is like creating spaces and opportunities, and so next month we're going to be opening a new virtual and immersive performing art space at Trolley Square. It's called the Alliance Theater, so we're working on building that out right now. And then we're moving Dreamscapes. If people haven't heard, we're moving Dreamscapes still at the Gateway. We're basically moving across the street into a bigger, better, more beautiful space, so we're very excited about that. So if you're listening to this still in November 2020, then go to Dreamscapes while you still can and say goodbye to the installation, because they'll never see it again the same way. And then, of course, Illuminate. With Illuminate, starting this weekend, we're going to be projection mapping on the city and county building, which is a project I've been working on for 10 years. So it's really, sometimes it takes a decade to get some of this stuff done. So I'm very, what's that?
Persistence.
Yeah, persistence, and and we're also doing 2 other large-scale projection mapping pieces downtown. So since Illuminate started 4 years ago, that's been kind of our plan, is to do these large-scale projection mapping pieces around town. COVID kind of forced us into, we can't throw a big festival with 30,000 people coming out, so instead we're throwing these attractions that are easy to socially distance, like Lumen Land and everything else that we're doing for Illuminate. So I hope everyone has a chance to go experience all the art with Illuminate. And
Yeah, I don't have a lot as far as plugging or art. I have a wonderful woman at home that is growing a beautiful baby. Due in the end of January. So that is my next
that's your
Big
project.
project.
big
Yes.
project. I'm cutting all the rest for the next little while.
Congratulations, that's exciting.
Yeah, Lumen Land, come check it out. That is, it's just, I was lucky enough to come into Dreamscapes after it was already built and established and a running thing, and helping that part of the organization grow and creating more opportunities for artists. And Lumen Land has been, I've been able to pivot to Lumen Land and do this outdoor thing, which is really incredible, and everybody should come, even if it's snowing out, like come down and walk around and see lights, and just bring your snowshoes and snowsuit. And and so Lumen Land, and now Dreamscapes, our next iteration, which is going to be a be really cool because we've created something that works, something that's safe, something that brings art to the masses, that now we can just up our game. Our team's getting, more solid by the minute. Our communication is increasing, and the exhibit is just gonna knock people's socks off, man. Like, it's time. So, yeah, I'm very excited about Dreamscapes coming to you soon.
Nice. Thank you.
I'd just like to give a call to any artists out there. You're not alone. Don't give up. Keep the fire in your heart alive. Come find us. The people sitting around this table are communities that we represent. We're here, and we want you to come use us as a resource. The Utah Arts Alliance has active communities on your Facebook. Come find us there. Do you guys have like an info email that you use if people just want to reach out to you in general?
Yeah, we have a contact, so we do so many different things. We have a contact page that people can reach out to the department in particular that they might be trying to, like if you're a musician or a visual artist or whatever. Always joining our email list is great. We send out about 3 emails a month, and that kind of updates everyone on opportunities that are open and different things that we're working on. So.
And I would also like to, going off of that plug, that the Utah Arts Alliance does have various programs for any artist out there.
Yes,
We have Counterpoint Studios, we have KUA Radio, we have Gallery, we have Connect program that brings, artists together every month that get to showcase their artwork. We have Dreamscapes, our indoor installation, immersive art experience. We have Lumen Land, our outdoor. So there's opportunities for all the artists out there, regardless of your medium, and that's why we're here, to foster the art in all forms.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, and I just found out today, that you guys have a radio station, KUAA, that's in Salt Lake City, 99.9 FM, is that right?
Yep, that's right.
I'm listening to that at my house right now. It's really great.
It's so great, yeah. We broadcast out of the Arts Hub next door here. We just moved our antenna to the Wells Fargo building, so we just moved it to the tallest building in Utah, I guess. And so, we increased our broadcast range. And so, if you haven't heard KUAA, listen. Bad Brad Wheeler's our station director. He's kind of a radio icon in Utah. And we call it a multilingual, multicultural radio station. So you may hear blues from Japan, you may hear rock and roll from Germany, but it's a lot of fun. It's a really great radio station. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So those are my plugs for you, for me.
Hey, thanks. I like that.
But my own plug is, Element 11. We have a lot of really cool artists. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to us, info@element11.org. If you are looking for help with an art project or you want to propose something, please feel free to reach out to us, and I'll give you Ted's cell phone number. He'll help you build something. We are always looking for volunteers for next year's event. We're looking for leadership. If you're interested in being on our board of directors, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd love to speak to you. So, thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. And we hope you enjoy Illuminate and Lumen Land and everything else artistic that's going on in Salt Lake City. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Yay. Yay, yes.